Hello, this is Chaplain Stevens with the New Jersey Institute of Theological Studies, and we're continuing our study on Messianic Christology. And right now we're going to talk about the Psalms and how the Psalms of David are chock full of Messianic prophecy and Messianic implications. David was one of the more unique characters in the Old Testament because David was not only a king, but David was also a prophet. And you really see the gift of prophecy when you read his Psalms. And we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about a few Psalms. And I want to start with Psalm 2, verse 7. Psalm 2, verse 7. And let's see here. It says... let's see here. Let me start. I will declare the decree. The Lord has said unto me, Thou art my son. This day I have begotten thee. And so here we see just a glimpse of God declaring that his son would be the Messiah, and that through the lineage or through the bloodline of David, the Messiah would come. David was also foretold by God that his kingdom would never end. And we know in order for a kingdom to never end, that means that you have to have somebody more than just a man within that bloodline. And the king that is spoken of here, of course, is not David, but the Messiah. And so it says here, I will declare the decree. The Lord has said unto me, Thou art my son. This day I've begotten thee. Verse 8, I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I shall not be moved. And so here we see that the Messiah will be at the right hand of God. And whenever you read in the scripture about somebody being at the right hand of somebody, that means that they're in a position of power and great authority. Verse 9 of Psalm 2, Therefore my heart is glad, my heart rejoiceth, my flesh shall also rest in hope. For thou wilt not leave my soul in hell, neither will thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. And this is one of my favorite verses in the Old Testament, because this is one of those verses that refutes the false teaching that Jesus went to hell after he died. He did not go to hell. Jesus went to Abraham's bosom and he preached to the captives being the Old Testament saints. Jesus did not go to hell. He wasn't in hell battling demons. It sounds dramatic, it sounds deep, but it wasn't true. He did not go to hell. And so it says right there in verse 10, For thou wilt not leave my soul in hell, neither wilt thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. Let's look at another Psalm, Psalm 16, verses 8 through 10. And this is where we see the resurrection of Christ foretold in the Psalm 16, 8 through 10. And I suggest you go there and read that. In verses 16 through 18, it says, of Psalm 22, it says, For dogs have compassed me, the assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierce my hands and my feet. I may tell all my bones. They look and stare upon me. They part my garments among them and cast lots upon my vestures. So here we see in verse 16 and 18 the account of Jesus being on the cross and them gambling for his garments. It also talks about his hands being pierced and his feet pierced. Of course, David wasn't talking about himself. He was speaking prophetically. And we need to understand, too, that crucifixion had not even been a type of capital punishment. For the children of Israel, capital punishment involved stoning. But under the Roman Empire, crucifixion was the form of punishment that was used, because the Romans wanted to make an example out of people. And that's why they dragged out the death sentences so long. You know, usually a person that was crucified would spend anywhere from 2 to 5 days on a cross. And so when people rode by and they saw the hill of the skull, Golgotha, they would see these thieves and murderers and whoever was up there, and it would serve as a reminder to everybody that Rome was in charge and Rome didn't play. So here in Psalm 22, verses 16 through 18, we have a clear description talking about piercing of hands and piercing of feet. And it talks about his garments among them, and they were cast lots on them. So you can't get any clearer. Psalm 22 is one of the most descriptive Messianic prophecies in the Bible, and David wrote it. Let's see here. Verse 19, he keepeth all his bones, and none of them is broken. And we remember when Jesus hung on the cross, they were going to break his legs because that speeded up the process of death during crucifixion. When somebody is being crucified, they suffocated. Basically, their lungs filled with water, and they literally drowned to death. And so the way that the person that was being crucified kind of stayed alive a little longer was by pushing up on their legs and trying to stay as upright as possible. And what they would do is break the legs and make it speed up the death. But they never, when they went to go break Jesus' legs, he had already given up the ghost. And so we see right here in verse 19, it says, he keepeth all his bones and none of them broken. Let's look at another Psalm, Psalm 34. Let's see here, Psalm 34. Let's see, I don't have it printed here, but Psalm 34:19 is a good example of the description of an unbroken sacrifice. And remember back in Exodus when God told Moses to take the lamb, unspotted lamb, a lamb without spot, and put the blood on the doorpost. He also described the fact that the lamb could not be broken, but the lamb had to be whole. And so Jesus is a perfect example of this when he went to the cross. Let's see here. Psalm 41:8 describes Jesus being, the Messiah would be betrayed by a friend. That was prophesied in Psalm 41:8. So we have to understand that David wasn't only a warrior, but he was a songwriter. He was a prophet. And I really believe that some of the most descriptive Messianic prophecies came through David. Probably the only person that had more insight on Messianic prophecy was Isaiah, but David was right up there with him. Let's see here. We're going to a New Testament scripture. Just kind of help wrap this up. 1 Timothy 3:16, it says, and without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness. God was manifest in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, believed on in the world, received up into glory. This 1 Timothy 3:16 clearly describes the death, burial, and resurrection. It's one of the most powerful gospel verses in the New Testament. 1 Timothy 3:16. It's a good verse to remember when you're witnessing to somebody. So we're going to wrap this up, and our next lesson we're going to talk about why the virgin birth was so important, and how through Messianic prophecy even the virgin birth was foretold. And we're going to spend some time talking about that. So just as a heads up, before our next lesson, study Hebrews chapter 9, and it'll help prepare you for our next lesson. Hope this has been a blessing to you, and God bless you, and we'll be back again soon with our continuation of our study of Messianic Christology. Dr. Stevens out.